Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
We read every name and we appreciate you all tremendously. Welcome back, friends. Hey, I'm happy to report that we've made it through another long summer. In celebration, we're going to usher in the chills with the scariest author on the network. Now, that's not to say his stories are always so scary, but it sure is scary when he shows up unannounced and tries to get in your house.
Drew, open up. It's PD. I brought some dingo daddies.
I don't know why he's in his underwear, boy.
You let Sturtevant hang out all the time.
Yeah, but he wears pants. Alright, that's better. Anyway, visit simplyscarypodcast.com and hit the patrons area button. For $5 a month, you can get the whole catalog ad-free.
Oh, come on, dude.
That's it. Chester, go say hi to PD. Now, let me get that for you.
Oh, wow. Is this Chester out here? Well, you're a big boy, ain't you? Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Get back. Get back. You hear me? Drew? Drew!
Ooh. But anyway, tonight we've got a very special one from our good pal PD, who's always welcome, of course. This one's the latest installment of the lauded Craig and Lorna series. So without further delay, from author P.D. Williams, I give you Craig's Ghosts. April 3rd, 1938, Brickford Asylum, Summerfield, Georgia. Secure her legs, Dr. Michaels said, smearing petroleum jelly on the temples of the struggling patient. He placed a metal ring with two large wires on her partially shaved head, then turned the screws that tightened the apparatus in place. Along with the test subject, 3 additional doctors and 2 nurses were crammed into a small room that had previously been used as a sleeping quarters for staff who had been working long hours. It was hot and humid. Despite sweating, some in attendance were shaken, their nerves overwrought. The treatment that was about to take place was experimental in nature. To be caught performing it would likely result in the forfeiture of licenses and possibly criminal charges. Some of the participants were having second thoughts, worried about their careers. Others felt the experiment was cruel, unethical, and wrong.
Please, no. I don't like this,
the unknown patient sobbed.
I beg you not to hurt me.
Then, without warning, her eyes took on a savage glare, as though she were possessed by a violent demon.
Let me go, or I'll sick my dog Lester on you. He's bright orange and big as a bear. He'll rip out your spine and chew on it like a soup bone.
The police had arrested the patient, an otherwise healthy 30-something woman, for vagrancy. She'd been roaming around the train station scaring folks with her incoherent babbling about her large devil dog. When questioned by the authorities, she had been unable to tell them anything about herself. She had been combative and delusional. Fearing for her safety as well as the safety of others, the police had taken her to Brickford. They had thought they were doing her a kindness. They had been wrong. Dr. Hagen, check outside and make certain the hallway is clear, said Michaels. Hagen hesitated.
Dr. Michaels, perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves. Further animal testing would be the prudent approach.
Michaels glared at Hagen, his face displaying annoyance and his eyes anger. Dr. Hagen, if you are uncomfortable with this procedure, feel free to leave. But consider this. If this treatment is successful, we will have found an effective way to treat schizophrenia, depression, and possibly other forms of mental illness. In leaving, you will forfeit any claim to what will most certainly be one of the biggest breakthroughs in medicine since penicillin. Hagen paused as he tried to reconcile his humanity with his desire to further science, albeit through the pain and terror of another human being. Very well, he muttered. I'll just be a minute. Before leaving, he looked at the patient as she lay helpless on the gurney, shaken with horror, her pleading eyes wide with fright. It's for the best, my child, he said, hoping to soothe her as well as himself. He opened the door and stepped into the hall, silently hoping that someone would appear. He waited. No one came. Dr. Hagen! Michael shouted impatiently. Hagen sighed, then re-entered the cramped room. All clear, Doctor. Is everyone else ready? Michaels asked. The room was quiet save for the patient's whimpering and the squeaking of the gurney as she struggled to get free. None of the staff raised their heads or made eye contact. Uncertainty hung over them like a guillotine. Hagen broke the silence. Dr. Michaels, are you sure that— Let's begin, Michaels said, cutting off any further discussion. Dr. Phillips, a young man who was serving his residency at the hospital, carried the 2 wires running from the crown, as the headpiece was called, and plugged them into the back panel of a small portable console. Then, standing over it, pressed a button, and a low electrical hum filled the room.
I'm ready, Dr. Michaels.
Thank you, Phillips. We'll begin with 80 volts. Wait for my signal. The patient snapped her teeth at the participants like a rabid dog. Thick spittle sprayed from her mouth with each animalistic grunt.
Let me out of here before I tell Lester to rip out your stinking guts!
She twisted her body back and forth, fighting to free herself from the restraints. Everyone step back, Michaels ordered. He looked at Phillips, who was waiting for the go-ahead. He nodded, and Phillips twisted a knob. One of the nurses looked away as the woman's frail body lifted off the gurney for a second before slamming back down, her body vibrating as the current passed through her. 10 seconds passed before Michaels gave the signal to stop. He pressed his stethoscope to the unconscious woman's heaving chest and listened. Straightening up, he said, The patient is fine. She has a slightly elevated heartbeat, but that's to be expected. He stepped back and looked at Phillips. This time I want 90 volts. The rest of the staff looked at each other with palpable concern, silently hoping that someone would disagree with the order.
90 volts?
Phillips asked with weak confidence.
Are you sure you want me to—
I said 90 volts, Doctor, Michaels reminded him. On my signal. This time it was one of the attendant doctors who turned his face away. Proceed. Phillips turned the knob and the hum of the machine grew louder than before. Then he turned on the switch that released the electricity. The woman's eyes flew open. Her body convulsed. Joints made sharp cracking noises as her limbs forcefully extended. Her face turned a deep blue as her throat constricted, cutting off her air. Dr. Michaels, that's enough! One of the doctors yelled. Michaels gave Phillips a nod and the procedure stopped. Without waiting for instruction or permission, the doctor who spoke up bent over the young woman and listened to her heart as a nurse lifted her head slightly, trying to open her airway. After several grueling seconds, the patient yanked in a big gulp of air, regaining consciousness. Relieved smiles abound throughout the room.
Honey, can you speak? Do you know who and where you are?
Asked the nurse who had come to the patient's aid. The woman blinked, then gazed groggily at everyone. The eyes that had been darting with fear and insanity were now clear and lucid.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Leanne Brady.
She mumbled.
I'm in some sort of hospital. That's right, sweetie,
said the nurse.
You're in a hospital. Do you have any relatives we can contact?
Leanne became agitated.
Where are my children, Sammy and Bonnie? Where's Bill, my husband?
She wanted to say more, but her tongue was dry and her throat sore and raw, making it uncomfortable to speak. The nurse stroked Leanne's hair, calming her.
Just try to relax, dear. We'll discuss contacting your family later. In the meantime, we'll keep you comfortable and work toward getting you back on your feet better than before.
Then, looking at Michaels, asked,
Isn't that right, Dr. Michaels?
Michaels didn't respond. He wasn't smiling, wasn't relieved, wasn't tuned in with the staff's happy mood. Let's try it again. I'm sorry, what did you say? Hagen asked. I'd like to see what effect increased voltage will have on her mental state. Terror tightened Leanne's stomach.
What's he talking about? Someone please tell me what's going on. I want to see my family.
It was Philip's turn to show concern.
Dr. Michaels, with all due respect, I failed to see how—
We're on the brink, Michaels yelled. We have an opportunity to push this experiment to its limits. It's important to see how much voltage an individual patient can take. Like any other medicine, we have to determine an appropriate dosage based on weight and size. I understand your doubts, but there has never been any meaningful progress in medicine without taking risks. You will all thank me when we're at the Nobel Prize ceremony being celebrated. Phillips, on my signal, 120 volts. Phillips hesitated. Michael scanned the room, furious. If anyone wants to end up on the wrong side of science, you may leave now. The room fell silent. Eyes were cast downward. Going by the shame etched on the faces of the staff, Leanne knew something terrible was about to happen to her. Her heart thudded. Sweat soaked her shivering body like cold rain.
What's happening? Why are you all standing around? Somebody please untie me. I have a home, a family. Please let me.
Michael nodded at Phillips, who turned the knob to nearly its fullest position and flipped the switch. Leanne began flopping on the gurney like a fish. The nauseating scent of her urine and feces permeated the room. Her bulging eyes made a squishy pop as they pushed their way out. The steam rising out of the empty sockets left an acrid smell. Without permission, Phillips switched the control board off and ran into the hall, puking and crying.
Oh, my God! Oh, my merciful God!
A nurse bawled. What have we done? A doctor demanded to know. We just executed a young woman, a mother and wife, no less. How are we going to explain this? We aren't, Michael said. Her family has no idea where she is. We'll tell the police that we couldn't help her, so we released her. She was clearly disturbed. Schizophrenic, most certainly. She could be anywhere.
That might not satisfy the authorities,
Hagen said.
What if there's an investigation? One thing's for certain. We'll have to shut down this experiment until we know better how to perform it. It's just too risky.
We're shutting down nothing, Michael said. We were close to taking the first step in developing a means to treat mental illness. You all saw how she responded to the procedure. We need to keep pressing forward. Sacrifices will have to be made along the journey. As for you all, you'll keep your mouths shut. As I recall, none of you left when you had the chance.
I have to agree with Dr. Michael's assessment of this experiment,
a doctor said.
Now that we've learned the limitations of this procedure, perhaps we can take the treatment a bit further in different directions. For example, we can try opening up the brain and applying electrical stimulation to specific regions to see if that would have a more direct effect.
Michael smiled at last. We've been blessed with an opportunity to forge new ideas. There's nothing to be gained by allowing our anonymous patients to die from madness. Most of them were abandoned here by their families and forgotten. We could give purpose to their pitiful lives. Who wants to take that world-changing step with me? As the steaming corpse of Leanne Brady slowly stopped sizzling, the living persons in the room raised their hands. Present day. Lorna was busying herself by tidying up the trailer before her first customer arrived. She had left the snappy snip to pursue her dream of becoming a successful entrepreneur. Now was her time to put up or shut up. The Happy Hog Day Spa was Lorna's first time striking out on her own. She imagined lines out the door and through the trailer park filled with discriminating and sophisticated women ready to shell out money for her unique services.
I need some tranquil music to set the mood,
Lorna decided. She picked through her CD collection of country, bluegrass, and classic rock.
These ain't gonna work. I need an easy listening instrumental style of music.
She searched further and found a recording that had belonged to her daddy, the golden Hawaiian hits of Marva Muddlebrain.
This'll do the trick. Nobody plays Aloha Oi on the saw like old Magic Marva.
She inserted the disc into the player and set the volume to a soothing level. The wavering sound of Marva putting a bow to saw drifted through the trailer like a floating poop cloud. Seconds later, Lorna heard a rumbling vehicle approaching. She rushed to the window, tripping over her heavy feet, and pounded a small hole in the wall with her oversized noggin.
Dadgummit!
She screeched, pulling her head free of the shallow crater. She shook some sense back into her head and staggered to the screen door. The customer, Lynette Drivey, exited her battered El Camino and stomped a path to the trailer/spa.
You, Lorna?
She rudely asked.
Can Asian kids do math and play the cello? You betcha,
Lorna exclaimed.
You must be Lynette. That is correct. I got an 11:30 appointment for a hot facial and body massage along with the manicure. Well, come on in, girl, and we'll get you started.
Lynette, a bulbous, irksome orb from the south side of Middle-earth, tottered up the cinder block staircase and entered.
So, what brung you to the Happy Hog?
Lorna asked.
I lost a bet, but that's okay. I won my money back by going through with this,
Lynette confessed. Lorna's feelings weren't hurt nearly as much as her pride. She became defensive.
I think you'll find that I offer all the accoutrements that the higher-priced spas have, but without them costing you a kidney and your firstborn. Now, why don't you go to the bathroom in the back and strip down to your unmentionables? By the time you come out, I'll have everything ready. All right, but hurry up,
Lynette said before heading to the back of the trailer. Once Lynette had gone in the bathroom, Lorna laid some of the necessary tools for the session on the kitchen counter. She had originally planned on using a tricked-up ironing board as a massage table, but given Lynette's ample girth, had opted for the kitchen table instead. She slid the table open and removed the middle leaf. She didn't have a suitable pad to use as a cushion, so she had washed El Superbo's dog blankie for the purpose. Lorna spread it over the table and prepared for the individual treatments. For the hot facial, she wet a dish towel, tossed it inside the microwave, then set the timer for 5 minutes. For the hot stones treatment, she took an empty coffee can that she used as an ashtray and bolted to the yard. She opened Craig's greasy grill and with tongs removed 5 glowing charcoal briquettes, dropped them in the can, and hurried back inside. She arrived just as Lynette was leaving the bathroom. Showcasing her brightest smile, Lorna waved her arm in a sweeping gesture as she proudly displayed the kitchen spa. Then, in a voice full of wonder and delight, she welcomed her inaugural customer.
Dear madam, prepare to lose yourself on this here tranquil island where the calm blue waters whisper your name. Lie under the shade of the enchanted coconut trees, whilst I whisk you away from your world of woes.
Lynette scowled.
Anything's better than enduring the butt stank hovering over your bathroom.
She waddled down the narrow hall, grunting from the effort before joining Lorna.
"'Kay, what do I do now?" "Hop up on this here massage table and lay face down,"
Lorna instructed. Lynette eyed the small table with skepticism.
"You sure that thing'll support me?"
Lorna nodded affirmatively.
"I can assure you I use only the finest equipment."
Satisfied by Lorna's confidence, Lynette lay on the table, which made its resentment known with a loud squawk. She took a whiff and scowled.
"This blanket smells like a dog's balls." "I'll just have to take your word for it,"
Lorna said.
"I ain't got no idea how a dog's balls smell." "Yeah, well, the table's hard and my boobs are dangling through the opening. But I guess that'll have to be all right. Let's get this over with. I need to get home and put on the second application of my toenail fungus medicine." "Here we go, then,"
Lorna chirped.
"We'll start with the deep muscle massage."
She grabbed a large rolling pin from the counter and began working it up and down Lynette's back. The sound of her spine crackling drowned out the mellow melody of Mavis's sawing.
"Good Lord!"
Lynette cried out.
"Why don't you just shove that thing up my butt? It sure as heck couldn't hurt any worse. What happened? Was you out of car axles?"
Lorna was nervous and embarrassed. She put away the roller.
"I'm awful sorry about that. Let's move on to the facial wrap. Roll over on your back, close your eyes, and calm your mind."
As Lynette rolled over, Lorna pulled the hot dish towel from the microwave, grimacing from its intense heat. She tossed it from hand to hand like a hot potato. When she couldn't hold on to it any longer, she flipped it onto Lynette's upturned face. Lynette shrieked like a steam whistle.
"Get it off! Get it off!"
Lorna used tongs to remove the scalding hot cloth and tossed it into the sink.
"Dang woman,"
Lynette snarled.
"Do we need to come up with a safe word?"
Lorna felt panic bounding through her brain.
"I'm sorry, Lynette. I promise you're gonna like the heated stones. Roll over for me."
Lynette issued Lorna a look that dropped the room temperature by several degrees, then resumed the face-down position.
"Prepare to enter the gates of leisurely paradise,"
Lorna crooned. She shook the gray charcoal briquettes from the ash can onto Lynette's tortured back.
"Shit in a shoebox!"
Lynette screamed, catapulting herself off the table.
"That's it. I'm done with this. If you want to force classified intel out of me, all you had to do was ask."
Lynette stomped down the hall and retrieved her clothes, not bothering to put them on. Without saying a word, she brushed past Lorna and made her way outside. Lorna was mortified.
"Don't you want to get your fingernails manicured?"
Lynette turned, her face scrunched with rage, and flipped Lorna her middle finger.
"Why don't you start with this one here? How's about I give you a free bikini wax? I just gotta find where Craig put the duct tape." "No thank you, Dr. Lecter."
Lynette shoehorned herself into the El Camino, which rocked under the weight of 1,000 beers and hot dogs. She fired up its roaring engine, shoved the gear into drive, and stomped the gas pedal. The ugly heap swirled, creating a red dirt vortex, then sped toward the exit of the trailer park. Lorna pouted as disappointment filled her sickened heart with despair, and her sad eyes with thick tears. Her body slumped as she watched Lynette drive away with her dreams.
"What a kick in the coin slot. It can't get much worse than this,"
she groaned. Then Craig pulled up to the trailer, proving her wrong. The sound of quiet sobbing met Craig as he neared the front of the trailer. "Is that Lorna?" he wondered. He could count on his left hand the number of times Lorna had cried. He had to. Adding more numbers with his right hand strained his math skills. As soon as Craig entered, he noticed the kitchen was in disarray. The table had been pushed aside and a leaf was missing from its top. The space smelled of burnt flesh and cheap perfume, or at least he thought it was perfume. It could well have been Raid Bug Killer. Craig followed the weeping into the living room. Lorna was sitting on the edge of the sofa, her face buried in her hands, her upper body hitching with each pitiful sob. Craig hadn't seen her this upset since her two cats, Marshall and Tucker, had run off.
Darling?
Craig softly said.
What?
Lorna yelled. Craig swallowed and took a breath before continuing.
Honey, I get the feeling that you're a scotch upset about something. Did your appointment go bad?
Lorna wiped her dripping eyes with her forearm and sucked a thick wad of snotty sadness up her nostrils.
That's putting it mildly. I feel like I've been set on fire and put out with a barbed wire baseball bat.
Craig sat down on the coffee table facing Lorna.
Well, I sure am sorry to hear that, sugar. I'll bet your other appointments will work out better.
Ain't no other appointments.
Lorna sniffed.
Well, maybe things didn't go well because of the customer. Who was she? Anybody I know?
Yeah, you know her. It was Lynette Drivey.
That leather-lunged old biddy. She's a killer queen, dynamite with a laser beam. That one's guaranteed to blow your mind any time if you let her. Say, how's about doing some advertising?
I can't afford no advertisements. I've been hanging out in the parking lot of the Dixie Pixie convenience store, passing out flyers. Some women take 'em, but most refuse 'em. I give one to this gal pushing her baby in a stroller. She gave it to her young'un like it was a toy. It took it in its delicate little hands, made a lot of folds, and created an exact origami likeness of the Last Supper. What the heck was I supposed to make of that?
Craig snickered.
How's about Judas hanging from a tree by his pecker? That'd have showed the little tit sucker.
Craig, this ain't funny. I really want to make my dream of being an entrepreneur a reality. I don't want to live the rest of my life being nothing more than a trophy wife.
Craig stupidly swatted at the low-hanging fruit.
Trophy wife? Lorna, if you're a trophy wife, then I must have come in last.
Lorna's hands became fists, and her face hardened.
Need I remind you I still have boobs to die for? At your age, they're more like boobs to trip over.
Craig, do you not understand that as soon as I can make it look like a violent accident, I'm going to kill you?
Craig realized that he had stepped in dookie so hard that it splattered on his kneecaps.
I'm sorry, Shug. I was only trying to get a laugh out of you. Listen to me. You got a dream so big that it can't help but come true. Don't let this one bad experience push you off course. It's important to keep one eye on what's in front of you and the other on the person standing beside you.
Who do I look like, Peter Falk? I don't need you lying to me just to make me feel better.
Have I ever lied to you?
No, but I've heard lots of lies from others. Santa Claus is real, checks in the mail, and Daddy's just going out to buy some smokes. He'll be right back.
Craig was aghast at Lorna's confession.
Did your daddy really tell you that?
Yep, Mama told me the same thing when she run off. So did my sister Clovis, and she was only 4 years old at the time.
Clovis, huh? Ain't she on the easy side?
Easy like Sunday morning. Let's size her up this way. That girl's been passed around like a bong at a Buffett show. She's been plugged more times than the dikes of Holland. By the time she and her first husband laid the foundation of their marriage, she was move-in ready. More men have planted a flag on her than Mount Everest. If you were stupid enough to screw her, you'd get more than the clap. You'd get a standing ovation. If she was...
I get it,
Craig said.
Let's move on to another subject. Remember me telling you that Reverend Smellum called me right after that incident at Tybee Island?
Yeah? Didn't he say he wanted to meet with us to discuss a business venture?
Yeah, but he didn't say what. I've got his number handy. I could give him a call.
Lorna let her mind digest the plan.
Heck, we ain't got nothing to lose. You done lost your paid spokesperson gig with them lawyers called Lock, Stock, and Barrel. Heck, it's like you invented unemployment. Seeing as we don't have anything standing in our way, we might as well give old Smellum a call.
Craig was relieved that Lorna was relieved.
I'll call him right now, 'cause I'm the man with the plan, God's gift to the world.
Lorna sneered.
If you're God's gift to the world, I hope he kept his receipt.
Craig and Lorna entered the small sanctuary of Buttermilk Bible Chapel and followed the loud marching band music emanating from the rear of the building. Cason's Go Rolling Along led them down a short hallway adorned with oil paintings of Jesus that made him look like Kenny Loggins in one and Jared Leto in another. The other pictures were downright unusual, like a framed promo pic of O.J. Simpson with the inscription, "Thanks for the shriveled glove, love the juice." Hanging next to it was an Olin Mills portrait of Reverend Smellum cuddling a kitten in front of a cheap backdrop of the Swiss Alps. Beside that were a couple of dental x-rays. Shortly, Craig and Lorna arrived at an office at the end of the hall. The door was open, so they peeked inside.
Hey, Lunatic Fringe!
Smellum couldn't hear him over the music. He was slumped over his desk, eagerly staring at his computer monitor. Though facing Craig and Lorna, he didn't register their presence.
Oh, weird. That's just plain wrong. I didn't know you could put it in a cow's...
He looked up and saw Craig and Lorna in the doorway. Panicked, he clicked the monitor to screensaver and poked the stop button on the boombox sitting on the edge of his desk. He sat up, tightened his necktie covered with Looney Tunes characters, and attempted to look respectable.
Well, looky there. If it ain't my brother from a Playgirl cover and my sister from another mister. Ha ha. I weren't expecting y'all till 2 o'clock.
Clearly,
Lorna said. Smellum nervously cleared his throat.
It sure is good to see y'all again. Come on in and sit down. Mi casa su casa, as the Germans say. Hey.
Craig and Lorna crossed a large rug featuring the painted likeness of a naked Nubian princess straddling a lion. They made themselves as comfortable as possible on a pink leather sofa with questionable stains. Lorna spoke first.
Tell me, are you still an alcoholic druggie with sexual perversions?
Smellum was offended.
I'll have you know that I am no longer an alcoholic druggie. I focused all my attention on being a better pervert.
And here we go again.
Oh, come on now. Well, fellas do a good time every now and again.
Lorna wasn't sold.
What's your idea of a good time? Smearing peanut butter on your privates and calling the dog?
In spite of their unsavory exchange, Lorna continued probing for the positives in the man who might lead them to success.
Speaking of pets, I seen from one of your pictures in the hall that you adopted a kitten. I suppose you're making an effort to be kind. I've always liked kitties.
Yep, I also made a video with the cute little fella. Afterwards, I swore that I'd never do porn again. I guess it's like the Apostle Paul once said, love is patient, love is kind. So if you want the rough stuff, you'll have to pay extra.
You are one wonky honky,
Lorna said. Smellum's cartoon tie enthralled Craig.
So, what's up, Doc? You said you had a business proposition for us.
That's right. Have either of y'all ever seen one of them ghost chaser shows?
I seen a couple,
Craig said.
We know a fella down Tybee way that got himself a show called Bubba Got Dead.
Smellum continued.
Did you know that them things are super popular and cheap to make? Why, if a person put a mind to it, they could rake up some real dinero for themselves.
What's that got to do with us?
Lorna asked. Craig's eyes widened as he realized where Smellum was going with this.
Oh, I got you. You're figuring because we've dealt with some scary situations, we might have something to contribute. That sound right?
Give the man a cigar and an exotic neck rub.
Smellum boomed.
Now hold on. What part would we play in this scheme?
Well, I see y'all taking on more of a secondary role as my assistants. Since I'd be fronting the seed money, I thought it only fair that I'd be the team leader. But I got to tell you up front, when it comes to being the leader, I like to have my fingerprints on everything.
Obviously, you've never hidden the murder weapon,
Lorna said.
So where are you going to air this thing?
I was thinking maybe YouTube to start,
Smellum said. Right then, something unexpected came to Craig's mind. A good idea.
Maybe you should pitch it to one of them indie networks that has ghost hunting shows like Travel Channel.
Lorna tagged into the ring.
Yeah, there's a network for anything or anyone. HGTV, QVC, Food Network. Why, there's one called All Black Channel.
Well, that's bound to be better than All Irish Channel,
Smellum said.
The actors slur their lines, the film crew's always brawling in the background, and everybody refers to each other as "ya bastard."
Craig had an important question.
Well, now, if we gonna be running around hunting spooks, who's gonna film everything?
A confident smile took over Smellum's face.
Craig, my friend, I'm glad you asked. I done lined up a little Mexican fella who owns his own equipment and can start right away.
Does this little Mexican fella have any professional experience?
Lorna asked.
Aside from donkey shows down Tijuana way, and a brief gig with a frightened and confused kitten, he's done a few commercials hither and yon,
Smellum said.
But that ain't even the best part. This guy's the best cook I've ever seen.
That sounds interesting. What's his specialty? Tacos? Enchiladas? Burritos?
Actually, he makes an amazing baked Alaska. Sorry, but Chillin' Tales only allows a few racial stereotypes per episode.
Is there anything bad we ought to know about?
Lorna asked. Smellum grew serious. He leaned forward, the squeaking of his chair filling the silence. He looked from Craig to Lorna, as though he wanted them to prepare themselves for something unsettling.
We'll be heading into a dark, dangerous hellhole where no one treads late at night.
No sir,
Lorna yelped.
Ain't no way I'm going into Walmart after 10 o'clock.
No,
Smellum said, waving his hand in a calming gesture.
It's nowhere that terrifying. No, my friends, we'll be heading to an abandoned asylum 30 minutes away in Summerfield. This place is rumored to have been haunted for decades. It's called Brickford Asylum. Beginning in the 1930s, all the dangerous, crazy people from around these parts were rounded up and left there to die. Its rooms and cells were filled with the helpless and hopeless. These folks who had little or no family to care about them. Then there was the treatment rooms, as they called them. The stories tell of unspeakable atrocities, experimental brain operations with no anesthesia, forced trauma to observe how the human mind can be broken. And awful murders to do away with patients and staff who know too much. This is a bad place we're going. Think you can handle it?
Lorna was skeptical.
I ain't saying that none of that stuff happened. What I am saying is that there likely ain't no ghost there. It's probably all made up.
Smellum was unconvinced by Lorna's argument.
Well, that's easy to say if you ain't never been in there. But there's people who have that swear they...
People are gonna see what they want to see,
Lorna interjected.
I once believed that Craig was my knight in shining armor. Turned out he was a dog log wrapped in tinfoil.
It is a deep, deep ache that I feel in my heart,
Craig said.
Sometimes you make it feel like a squeaker in a dog toy. I am not a happy camper right now.
Lorna smirked.
Show me a happy camper, and I'll show you somebody who picked their own wild mushrooms.
Settle down, you two lovebirds,
Smellum said.
Just tell me if you're in or out.
I ain't got much else going on,
Craig said. Lorna paused in thought.
Sure, why not?
Pleased with the response, Smellum slapped his hands together.
Oh, we're going on an adventure. Let me call my film guy and set up a time when we can get started. I'm telling y'all, This could be the start of something big.
When you want to begin?
Craig asked, his voice riddled with excitement.
As Thomas Jefferson once said, let's get going tomorrow.
But what about your church obligations?
Lorna asked.
Are you going to have time for this project?
Smellum exhibited an emotion that a man with no self-awareness rarely displays. Embarrassment.
Full disclosure. I'm currently on unpaid probation with the church again.
Oh, Lord,
Craig moaned.
What'd you do this time?
Smellum's mood became somber.
I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and the church has given me undeserved grace each time. But when you stack one failure of wisdom and discernment upon another, eventually everything's gonna come crashing to the ground. The first thing I got busted on was skimming from the funds of a charity project that the church undertook. It's a wonderful organization that provides job training and counseling to homeless women who have been forced into prostitution. It's called the Institute for Destitute Prostitutes. But the event that did me in was the night Millard Mooney and his all-Methodist monkey band came to perform at the Wednesday night supper and a show.
Lorna sensed an idiotic Smellum tale in the making.
Please don't start up with another one of your stupid...
Millard, you see, is a taxidermist by trade who's longed for the spotlight.
Smellum began.
Let me set the stage by giving you a little backstory. Millard reasoned that there wasn't nothing more entertaining than a performing chimp, so a whole group of them would have to rock the house. He invested a great deal of money into purchasing chimps that were retired from the circus. Once he got them settled in, he felt that as a good Methodist, it would be wholly appropriate if all the monkeys were Methodists as well. So Millard went about the business of baptizing the willing ones in the name of Jesus and having them take the membership oath of the Methodist Church. The ceremony consisted of Millard telling them that they had become Methodists and then asking them to state whether they had any objections. He took their silent and vacant stares as implied consent. Hey! Millard then went about the arduous task of teaching each monkey to play a specific set of handbells on cue. Once that was completed, a new and amazing touring act was born. Millard Mooney's All-Methodist Monkey Band. Hey! On the night of the performance, we was all having a fine and cordial time, enjoying sloppy joes with iced tea. For dessert, we were to have a heaping helping of elderly Edna Mayfield's homemade banana pudding. As we waited for the show to begin, I remember asking Millard how in the world he ever trained them monkeys to play handbells. He told me that his trick was to starve the poor apes on the day of the concert. Following each satisfactory performance, he would reward them with all the bananas they could stand to eat. After supper, as the dessert was being served, I stepped up to the microphone located at the front of the fellowship hall and gave a brief sermon about the time Jesus angered the elders in Capernaum by claiming he was bigger than the Beatles. Once I wrapped up, I waited a couple of beats, then began the introduction of that night's guests. When I was finished, Millard and his monkeys quickly took the stage, or in this case, the Billy Graham area rug at the front of the fellowship hall. Millard thanked the church for having him out and offered a disclaimer. Being a cautious and honest man, he said he wanted to disclose that despite the moniker, not all of the monkeys were Methodists. In spite of his earnest attempts at converting the savages, they were, according to him, 3 holdouts. 2 of the chimps were evangelical Presbyterians, while the one digging in his butt and snipping his fingers was, as far as Milford could tell, unaffiliated. Then he went on to say that he didn't want to brag, but the monkeys would be performing a tribute to Leonard Skinner that wouldn't leave a dry eye in the house. We all gingerly applauded, then Miller spun around, took out his conductor's baton, and queued up the monkeys. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that monkeys, like many unchurched people, typically don't like having religion forced upon them. The second thing is that if you're a chimp and you've been deprived of food for several hours, you're likely going to notice if there's anything like banana pudding in the room. To this day, I do not know how things would have turned out had we been eating chocolate or vanilla pudding that night. All I know is that Edna's banana pudding was about to ignite a chain of events that would forever alter the booking of entertainment at Buttermilk Bible Chapel. And the one, and the two, and the was as far as Miller got when the mayhem started. One of the monkeys, I think it was one of the pressers, screeched loudly and lurched forward. A woman screamed, a child cried, and before we knowed it, it was conquest of the planet of the apes. The first rush of panic began when the monkeys started lunging at people who had bowls of banana pudding. Some of the folks screamed and jumped through windows, and some pulled their own lips off. I was tethered by fear at the sight of them darn Harry bell ringers hopping from table to table, bitch slapping and a drop kicking everyone in their path. The more violent apes swung from the fluorescent light fixtures like Tarzan and Cheetah, snatching wigs and toupees off of some of the terrified pudding eaters. One of them goomers was riding our teen minister piggyback while clanging him over the head with a bell tuned to what sounded like a B-flat. Our dyslexic associate pastor jumped into the fray and frantically dialed 119 on the room's rotary dial telephone. For my own safety, I crawled under a folding table as the riot erupted around me. After what seemed like an eternity, Miller came bursting through the doors of the hall with a tranquilizer rifle and commenced firing blindly into the crowd. The first victim was Widow Merkel, who let out a quick yelp when one of the tranks hit her in the neck. An elderly gentleman took one right in his butt while shaking his fist in the air and yelling, "I have not yet begun to fight for my pudding." Soon afterwards, the popo arrived and quickly herded the monkeys into the cages they had been transported in. Those of us who hung around quickly formed a prayer circle to lift up an injured officer who had, as Edna put it, got bit on his ding-a-ling. Despite Edna's insistence on laying hands on the officer's injured extremity, we gathered her into our circle and prayed for everyone involved, with the exception of the one ape who was said to be unaffiliated. Our reasoning was that if you don't believe, you don't receive. I heard Millard's group broke up not long after that Wednesday night supper and a show. Word was it weren't because of the fear of lawsuits. No, it had to do with an orangutan that hooked up with one of the chimps named John. Turns out the other apes resented the input that John allowed her to have during their practice sessions. So the band split up and went their own way. Oh well, what you gonna do? All I can tell you is that in my life, I've seen some of the most famous and revered performing artists in the world. But nothing will ever come close to being as entertaining as the night I witnessed and survived Millard Mooney's All-Methodist Monkey Band. I just wish that my congregation had had that same perspective.
Lorna lifted an imaginary mic to her mouth.
Welcome everyone to the Billboard 100 of Stupidity. Coming in at number 3 with a bullet is none other than the Reverend Ronnie Don Smellum. I gotta say that when it comes to preacher Smellum, you are a man amongst carrots.
Fair enough,
Smellum glumly replied.
How's about we meet here at noon tomorrow?
Craig said.
That'll work. Me and my assistant will be rearing to go. It's like General George S. Patton once said, 2 heads are better than one, unless you're trying to fit into a turtleneck sweater. Hey.
We're gonna have to get somebody to take care of El Superbo whilst we're gone,
Lorna pointed out as they made their way home from the meeting.
Well, who'd you have in mind?
I was thinking of my sister Clovis.
Seriously? After she give us the dumb idea of getting a rental house on Tybee Island?
How was she to know that we'd come across violent creatures and a mad scientist? It ain't like she's psychic.
All right then, give her a call. I just hope she ain't up to her typical shenanigans.
You let me worry about Clovis. In the meantime, why don't you and El Superbo go down to the playground? Let him treat the young'uns. You know how much he enjoys that.
That he does. I'll get him ready as soon as we get home. You call Clovis.
When the duo returned, Craig got El Superbo suited up and led him to the truck for his park excursion. Once the two were out of sight, Lorna called Clovis. The phone rang several times before Clovis answered.
Hey there, sis. What's shaking?
Clovis asked.
Not much. What's doing your way?
Oh, I'm just having a minor disagreement with some folks. Nothing to worry about.
Let me guess. They screwed you over at the drive-thru. No, wait. The meter maid's giving you a ticket.
Lorna heard a loud, teeny voice bleed through in the background.
Ma'am, please let the other Dollar General customers go. We can work this out.
Lorna was concerned.
Clovis, was that the police?
Yeah, but they's overreacting. It's only me, a pissed-the-floor cashier, and a gay couple arguing over scented candles.
The bullhorn squealed to life again.
Ma'am, please, can you at least let us know if the hostages are safe?
Clovis, should I call you back? It sounds like you've got a lot on your hands right now.
Ain't that just like you, Lorna? You're always thinking the worst. The glass is half empty. It might rain on my wedding day. There's a SWAT team to deal with. You are such a miserable Millie. Why was you calling me anyway?
I was hoping you might be able to dog-sit El Superbo for a few days.
Well, now, that might be a little...
Ma'am, we have your mother here. She'd like to speak with you.
Clovis, what the heck are you up to now?
Her mother asked over the police bullhorn.
Oh, I'm just talking with Lorna.
Clovis yelled back. Returning to Lorna, she said,
Guess what, Lorna? Mama's here.
Lorna's heart swelled with joy.
Really? I ain't been this surprised since Mark Chapman confessed to killing John Lennon. Like all the other Beatles fans, I thought Paul McCartney would try to take credit for that too. Let me talk to her for a sec.
Clovis put her cell phone on speaker, turned up the volume as loud as it would go, and stuck it out the entrance of the shop.
Okay, you're ready to rock, sis. Just make sure you talk loud enough to be heard at a distance.
Hey, Mama, is that you?
Lorna bellowed. Mama removed the cigarette from her ruby-red lips and pressed them to the bullhorn, then squeezed a button that allowed her to speak.
Yeah, baby. What's you and that no-account husband of yours been up to?
Same old, same old. I was calling Clovis to find out if she could keep our dog whilst we were busy on a job assignment. It don't sound like she's going to be available.
The police negotiator interrupted the conversation.
Ma'am, we need to deal with this standoff. Would you please get back to...
Pulling her face from the bullhorn, Mama addressed the negotiator.
I know good and well your mama and daddy didn't teach you to interrupt your elders.
Sensing a searing anger that might exacerbate the volatile situation, the officer stood down.
Sorry, ma'am. Please continue.
Well, thank you for the courtesy, T.J. Hooker.
Mama returned to the bullhorn.
You know, if and they pepper Clovis in a thick hail of gunfire, I might be able to watch him.
Lorna had her doubts about her elderly mother's ability to care for a large, needy dog such as El Superbo.
Gee, I don't know, Mama. He's pretty high maintenance. He snores a lot, so he has to use a CPAP. Then there's the other stuff he requires, like belly rubs, dog treats, and the occasional cigar. I don't think you're in shape to handle that much responsibility.
Lorna's reasoning offended Mama.
What you mean, girl? I raised 2 young'uns. Well, maybe not you so much. Still, I can surely handle the big stupid dog.
Lorna knew better.
I'm only suggesting that you've been slipping a bit over the years, brain-wise.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm as sharp now as I ever was.
Mama, you sprayed your hair with lemon Lysol 'cause you thought it was your Aqua Net.
Okay, maybe I did get the two mixed up. But in fairness, the Lysol gave my bouffant a good stiff hold, along with the fresh lemony scent. It was like having a spring meadow growing out of my skull.
The hostage negotiator was losing his patience.
Ma'am, I think we have more pressing issues to discuss with your other daughter. I and the frightened hostages would deeply appreciate it if you could wrap up the dog situation as soon as possible, so that we can get back to the matter at hand.
Lorna, hon, the police want to wrap up this minor lapse of judgment of your sisters. I'm willing and able to take care of your dog for a spell. Just give me a holler and we'll set something up.
Lorna realized she didn't have many choices if she and Craig wanted to dive into the next supernatural adventure.
Okay then, Mama, I'll give you a call soon. Tuesday morning, okay?
Yeah, baby, that'll be just fine. Talk to you then.
You got it, Mama. Bye.
Bye, baby.
Mama turned her attention back to the standoff.
Clovis, honey, they got you surrounded. Do you have any demands?
There was a short pause as Clovis thought through her options.
For starters, I want an 8-track tape of Bob Seger's greatest hits, as well as 97 cents in non-sequential coins. Then I'll require a helicopter to take me to Big Billy's used cars on Highway 56, where a 1977 Pontiac Trans Am, autographed by the bandit himself, will be gassed and ready to go. The rest we'll figure out as we go along.
The police negotiator scribbled down the demands, then took the bullhorn from Mama's hand.
Okay, ma'am. Give us a few hours to make this happen. Is there anything else?
Clovis, realizing that the world was now her oyster, made her most compelling demand: a case of Dingle Daddy's beer. The day after Clovis escaped from the authorities disguised as a cheap sunglasses rack, Lorna called Mama, who agreed to take charge of El Superbo later that afternoon. Once they deposited the gassy pooch, Lorna and Craig drove to Buttermilk Bible Chapel to meet with Reverend Smellum. The porn-addicted pastor was waiting for them outside the church building. A small man of Hispanic descent stood with them. Craig and Lorna pulled their rust-laden pickup along the curb, shut off its chug-chugging motor, and climbed out. Then they joined Smellum and his companion.
I'm happy y'all made it.
It took some nipple twisting on Lorna's part, but here we is,
Craig said as he enthusiastically shook Smellum's greasy palm.
Easy there, Chief. That's my happy hand, if you know what I mean.
Craig gagged as he yanked his hand from Smellum's.
Dang, dude, give a fella some warning.
Who's this little guy?
Lorna asked, nodding her head in the direction of Smellum's associate.
This here's my faithful Mexican sidekick who'll be handling all the recording. Pee-pee.
Das Pepe, the diminutive man grumbled in a thick Spanish accent.
Okay,
said Smellum. Craig made an effort to get to know his new co-worker.
So, Pepe, you got any young'uns?
Si, senor. I have 3.
Well, that's awesome. What's their names?
My oldest son is named Abilene.
Craig smirked.
Is it 'cause he was conceived there?
Pepe was puzzled.
I do not understand. What do you mean, senor?
I just thought since you named them after a town in Texas, there might be some special reason you give them that name.
There is a town in Texas called Abilene.
Course they is. Are you telling me you never heard of it?
No, senor. I cannot say that I have. Craig let the misunderstanding pass.
You said you have some other young'uns. Who's the next eldest?
Pepe smiled pridefully. Oh, si, senor. That will be my middle child, Atlanta. Craig relaxed.
Now we're getting somewhere. How long did you live there?
Live where?
Atlanta.
You must be pulling my leg, senor. There is a town called Atlanta. Craig rubbed his temples.
Never mind, Pepe. You said you have a third one. Let me guess. They're named Pittsburgh?
Pepe chuckled.
Don't be silly. We would never name our child after the city of Pittsburgh.
Craig chuckled too.
Yeah, that'd be kooky.
We call her New York, New York.
Craig slapped his palm against his forehead in frustration.
Okay then, in for a penny, in for a pound. Why'd you name her New York, New York?
Actually, her name is simply New York. She's hard of hearing, so we have to call her twice.
Like his face, Craig's body slumped.
Well, I tried,
he mumbled.
Never mind who's on first, Abbott and Costello,
Lorna said.
So smell 'em. When does everything kick in?
I've paid a visit to the maintenance manager at the asylum,
said Smell'em.
He give me a key to unchain the entrance, so we can enter whenever we please. I figure we might as well start right now.
Sounds suspiciously like a plan. Me and Lorna will follow you two down to Summerfield. See you there.
Smell'em grinned, his super white teeth glinting in the sun.
You heard him. Let's hit the road, Pee-Pee. That's Pepe. Okay.
Everyone entered their respective vehicle and left the church parking lot. If only they knew what evil, what horror awaited them. Smell'em and Pepe led the way up the cracked concrete lane leading to the main building of Brickford Asylum. Craig and Lorna followed closely behind, the lone squeal of the truck's weak shock absorbers echoing in the eerily still air. The absence of bird songs, along with the gnarled, withered trees and long-dead flora, only added to the desolate feel of the grounds. Soon the two vehicles came to a stop in front of the broken, looming structure where so many had lived, suffered, and died. Thin boards crisscrossed cracked and grimy windows. Faded wooden doors were chained shut, held in place by sturdy padlocks. 4 large pillars that had once lent gravitas to the formidable entrance were all but concealed by miles of festooning kudzu vines that slithered up and around them like leafy snakes. Thick, moist splotches of green moss painted the building's crumbling brickwork so that it resembled an elephanta cave. The small group exited their vehicles and huddled together, staring in frightened awe at the haunted structure that brought to mind an oversized mausoleum filled with the rotten husks of 100 screaming corpses. Craig stepped away from the others and studied the dreaded hospital. Its presence chilled him. Hissing whispers that touched only his ears beckoned him.
What is this place?
He worriedly wondered. Pepe, sensing Craig's trepidation, approached him. He noticed the troubled look on Craig's stubbled face.
A peso for your thoughts, senor,
he muttered.
And a 20 for the missus.
Smell'em guffawed. Lorna's psychotic glare truncated Smell'em's belly laughs. Like Pepe, Lorna too noticed Craig's glum disposition.
What's the matter, hon? You ain't looked this dejected since Boys to Men broke up.
Craig struggled to put words to the intense emotions he was feeling. It was like trying to explain the allure of Adele to a male heterosexual.
It's kind of hard to put into words. I'm sensing so much sadness and hopelessness in this place. I guess it's a mite overwhelming.
You're overthinking again,
Lorna scoffed.
How many times have I told you it's too much to handle for someone with your limited IQ?
Quit making me sound like I'm some kind of idiot. I ain't no idiot. Just play one in this book series.
Oh, by all means, give us a taste of your knowledge,
Lorna challenged. Despite the fact that Craig's mental landscape resembled a scorched earth dystopia, he managed to produce an interesting fact.
Alrighty then. Did you know that Jimi Hendrix, Michelangelo, John F. Kennedy, and Winston Churchill shared one common and unfortunate flaw? Not a one of them spoke Portuguese. It's true. Look it up. Now back off, woman.
Don't you know you ain't supposed to talk to an empowered woman like that? You're being what they call a toxic male.
Good. That means you'll die if you come near me.
Smellum attempted to break up the argument between Craig and Lorna.
Can you enemy combatants give it a rest? I want to get in here and poke around to get the lay of the land. Then Pepe'll set us up with a camera and a sound recorder.
Pepe rolled his eyes.
Das Pepe. Okay.
Smellum fished in his pants pocket and removed the key.
This is what the realtor give me. It'll unlock the padlock on the front door. Everything else inside is open. Y'all ready to rumble?
The other three nodded their head yes.
Well then, it's like Marie Antoinette said. Let's get going.
Actually, what she said was, let them eat cake,
Lorna said, correcting him. Craig was compelled to offer his thoughts.
You know, I can't help but wonder if things might have gone in a different direction for her if she had said, let them eat healthy salads.
Please, everyone,
Pepe pleaded.
We have much work to do. Y'all heard my little amigo,
Smellum said.
Let's head on in. You lead the way, Pepe. It's Pepe. Okay.
The group walked single file with Smellum leading the way. He used the key to unlock the padlock, pulled the chain through the door handles, then tossed the items aside with a loud clank. He opened the heavy wooden doors and immediately turned his head. The rush of rancid air took everyone's breath away, coating their lungs like cool mud. It was as if they had opened a long-sealed crypt.
Lord of Moses, what is that stench?
Craig asked, gagging.
Probably your upper lip,
Lorna guessed.
It is the stink of the dead,
Pepe said. Lorna disagreed.
No, I think it's the stink of a man who brushes his rotten teeth with the frequency of a price check at everything for $1.
Insult my oral hygiene all you want. I ain't taking another chance on brushing my teeth. The last time I did, I remember thinking how nice and tingly the toothpaste made my mouth feel until I seen I was using your Preparation H.
Smellum intervened again.
Honestly, you two, why don't y'all duke it out in the parking lot with a couple of motorcycle chains and be done with it?
Sorry. Me and Lorna will try to act like professionals.
Ain't professional to title them horny drunks give your barfly mama?
Lorna asked. Craig's face flushed with rage.
Now you done gone too far, you barrel-assed bimbo.
Lorna puffed out her ample chest, making the metal clips holding her overburdened bra together squeak.
Bring it, big boy. I'll put my size 8 so far up your butt you'll be tasting toe jam.
I'd like to see you try.
Oh, yeah? Well, my fist identifies as a pair of lips. Why don't you pucker up, 'cause I'm getting ready to lay a kiss on you.
Ay, caramba,
Pepe groaned.
Enough,
Smellum yelled.
One more word out of either of y'all about the other, and I'm gonna give out your address to the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, and worse than that, the Hindus.
No!
Craig and Lorna wailed.
Please, not the Hindus. They give us hell over our bug zapper one time. Said we was killing their reincarnated relatives.
See, the Hindus.
Pepe commiserated.
So many gods, so little time. I'll enter first,
Smellum said. He took a few steps inside and stopped. His vision panned the cavernous entrance. Except for some dried leaves and bugs, the floor upon which he stood was ornate and well polished. A thin layer of white dust rested on several coffee tables positioned within small circles of padded chairs spaced around the big open area. To his right was a long wooden counter where a receptionist had likely sat. Long strings of cobwebs clung to tarnished chandeliers. 2 ornate staircases curved opposite one another, meeting at a second-floor landing that loomed over the waiting area.
All good?
Craig asked.
Yep,
Smellum answered.
coast looks clear.
Lorna, Craig, and Peppy nervously trudged into the ominous realm, their footfalls echoing throughout like ghostly knocks.
Brr, this place feels cold and dead,
Lorna observed. Dots of fear prickled Craig's body.
Know what you mean. I feel like somebody's watching us.
Peppy offered the uneasy group of paranormal cops some encouragement.
Do not worry, amigos. I brought a flask of holy water to anoint this house of evil.
A visage of annoyance marched across Smellum's oily face.
You mean to tell me that flask is full of holy water? Dang, I stole it off you for nothing. I thought what with you being from south of the border, it was tequila. Here, you might as well take it back.
He removed the pilfered flask from his back pocket and returned it to Peppy, who opened it and sprinkled the immediate area with the contents.
So, what should we do first?
Craig asked. Smellum gave his first official directive.
Let's get the camera ready and I'll do the intro here in the hall. Chop chop, PP. We's burning daylight. Reverend, please.
Pepe begged.
My name is... Yeah, whatever,
Smellum said, waving away Pepe's frustration. As Pepe removed the camera from its case, Smellum ventured further into the expensive lobby, looking for a good spot to stand. A single beam of daylight was streaming in through a large round window above the front doors like a theater spotlight, inspiring Smellum. Like a master showman, he followed the ray and stood in the center of the lighted circle, proud and majestic, as if God had imbued him with spiritual power and authority.
This'll do just fine. How do I look?
like a big old greasy piece of chicken laying under a heat lamp at Popeye's,
Lorna observed. Craig stomped his foot.
Dadgummit, woman, now I have fried chicken on my mind.
Craig's complaint stoked Lorna's chronic agitation.
Shut up, SpongeBob Yellowteeth, before I take off one of these flip-flops and beat you to death. It'll probably take a couple of weeks till you die, but I'm sure it'll be well worth the effort.
Pepe rested the heavy video camera on his shoulder and schlepped to a spot 6 feet in front of Smellum.
Okay, amigos. The camera is ready.
Where do you want us to stand?
Craig asked Smellum.
Let's see,
Smellum said as he sized up the possible poses.
Let's place Lorna on my left and you, Craig, on my right.
As Craig and Lorna took their places, Smellum gave directions to Pepe.
When I give you the signal, turn on that gizmo of yours and I'll count down from 3. That'll be your cue to commence recording. See, Reverend.
Once Lorna and Craig took their positions, Smellum gave a nod for Pepe to begin. Pepe pressed his eye against the viewfinder and waited for Smellum's countdown. Smellum cleared his throat and began.
Okie doke now. 3, 2, 1. Well, howdy do, neighbors. I'm Reverend Ronnie Don Smellum, the ghost host with the most. Hey.
Who's dumb as a post,
Lorna added.
Cut! We'll edit that out. Let me start again.
He straightened his necktie and cleared his throat once more.
And a 1, 2, 3. Howdy do, everybody. I'm Reverend Ronnie Don Smellum, and I'd like to welcome y'all to the newest show in ghost hunting land. Ghost Sniffers. Hey, I am joined on this adventure by my capable assistants, Craig and Lorna Wankermouth. We are right here at none other than Brickford Asylum, and like Dane Cook's comedy routine, it's dark, outdated, and no one finds it funny. It's also rumored to be the single most haunted place in the state of Georgia. Join us now as we take you on a tour of this shadowy, cold, and terrifying place. Why, I can already hear creaks as loud as thunder and smell the noxious stink of the rotten dead.
Craig felt ashamed.
Sorry about that, preacher. I had collards for lunch, and now I'm paying the price.
Well, that explains my sense of dread and blurry vision.
Cut!
Smellum screeched again.
Well, let's try this one more time. 3, 2, 1. As we traverse these evil halls of darkness, we will cringe at distant wails and shiver before haunting figures. So hang on to your britches and be sure to keep your drawers clean and dry, 'cause you are now tuned into Ghost Sniffers. Cut! Did you get all that, PP?
It's Pepe!
The other three yelled in unison.
Okay.
Pepe was hesitant.
I am no longer sure about this, senor. I am frightened of this place. I sense El Diablo all around us.
I think we all feel that way, Pepe.
Craig said reassuringly.
It helps me if I keep my mind on something else.
Like what, Senor Craig?
Well, whenever I need some encouragement, I think about the song Eye of the Tiger.
That one make me sad,
Pepe said.
All I can picture is some poor tiger stumbling through a jungle, bumping into trees because he only has the one good eye.
Lorna tagged in.
The one I set my mind on is Pie Annie Man by Billy Joel.
Craig snorted.
Billy Joel is a has-been.
Lorna took exception.
That man is a blast from the past.
Yeah, like rickets and scurvy,
Craig said. Smellum offered his own encouragement.
I'm kinda partial to that song by Johnny Nash called I Can See Clearly Now. The lyrics have always struck a chord with me. I can see clearly now the rain has gone. If only the humidity hadn't fogged up her bedroom window.
The odd lyrics caught Craig off guard.
Reverend, I don't think those are the correct.
Best to let it go or we'll never get out of here,
Lorna suggested. Pepe became calmer.
I suppose you are all right. If I fill my head with happiness, fear cannot overtake me.
Smellum set things in motion.
Okay then, like Napoleon once said, everybody have fun tonight. Everybody Wang Chung tonight.
That's a line from an 80s dance song.
Agree to disagree,
Smellum replied.
So what's the plan, Reverend?
Here's what's gonna happen. Craig, you and Lorna take this EVP recorder and explore the lower level where the treatment rooms are. If and you hear disembodied voices, record them. My faithful sidekick and I will take the camera and search upstairs where the patients were kept and try to capture some footage of anything unusual. We'll meet back here in half an hour.
Craig took possession of the recorder. Then, turning to Lorna, asked,
You ready to rock?
Sure, why not?
Lorna said. Everyone turned to leave, but stopped when Pepe made a request.
Reverend, perhaps you should say a prayer.
Yeah, that might keep us safe from any evil spirits that might be awaiting on us.
Can't hurt none.
Let's bow our heads then,
Smellum said. When everyone had lowered their head in reverence, Smellum began his prayer.
Big Daddy in the sky, we ask for your divine protection and mercy on all of us, including twisted degenerates like Craig here.
Hey, now hold on a minute,
Craig shouted.
Shut up and take it like a man,
Lorna told him. Smellum became agitated.
Will you knock it off and show the Lord some respect and gratitude for giving us this opportunity to get famous?
Lorna agreed.
He's right. You should never look a gift horse in the mouth.
Well, I sure as heck ain't gonna look in the other end,
Craig said. Smellum picked up where he left off.
Let's try this again. Dear Lord, we turn to you, the ultimate miracle maker, for it was you who formed the universe, made man from dust, and gave the 2015 Carolina Panthers a trip to the Super Bowl. We also thank you for mysteries beyond human understanding, like how a bunch of 35-year-old actors is still getting away with playing teenagers on Stranger Things. Please guide us forward with divine courage as we remember the profound words of King David, who said, "A rolling stone gathers no moss, but it'll sure crush the heck out of an elderly midget." And with that, we say, "A to the men."
Then Smellum smacked his hands together and said robustly,
"Let's get after it, y'all. Remember, be back here in half an hour."
You got it, Padre,
Craig said. The teams went their separate ways, uncertain of what lay ahead, which was best. Had they known, they would have run from the haunted building in terror and never returned. The basement of the old building was blacker than a coal miner's rectum. The meager daylight leaking in through rows of small barred windows along two narrow corridors provided the only light. Directly ahead of the steps Craig and Lorna had walked down was a hallway that housed 6 rooms several feet apart. The doors of each were hanging open as if to welcome them. To their immediate right was a lengthier corridor with rooms as well. The deep darkness at the end of the hall made it difficult to determine the exact number. A faint spectral whistling sound floated through the L-shaped ward like a high-pitched howl. The musky air, coupled with the nervous sweat of Craig and Lorna, made the level smell sour like a wet and moldy shroud.
Where do you want to start?
You take the hall in front of us and check out the treatment rooms down there. I'll take this one on the right. Let's each start with the room at the end and work our way back up, so we'll meet here at the stairs. If one of us sees or hears anything, we'll holler to the other one. Do you want to use the EVP recorder first?
I reckon so,
Craig said. He lifted the device to his face and looked at it like a chimp attempting to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Say, how do you turn this thing on?
The question drew Lorna's ire.
Try kissing it on the neck and rubbing its boobies. How the heck should I know? Figure it out.
Craig found the small power button on the side of the recorder, along with 2 additional buttons that he assumed controlled the volume. On the other side were 3 other buttons that had icons representing stop, record, and play.
Okay, I think I got it. Let's get started.
While Craig ambled through the shadows of the hall assigned to him, Lorna walked to the end of the other hall. She opened the last door on the right and entered the gloomy treatment room.
What the?
Lorna said as she navigated the dingy space. A rusty metal gurney rested at the center of the room. Attached to it were 6 cracked leather straps, 4 restraints for wrists and ankles, 1 near the top for the chest, and 1 in the middle to constrain someone's midsection. In a corner was a rectangle machine about the size of a laundry basket. On it were a series of meters, knobs, and switches. 2 thick power cords ran from its back to a metal ring lying on the floor. 6 thumb screws adorned its circumference like jewels in a crown. Wall-mounted cabinets with single glass panes contained rotten rolls of gauze, bottles of alcohol, and several smaller brown bottles of unknown liquids. Lorna saw a 6-drawer wood filing cabinet standing in a corner at the front of the exam room.
Wonder what I'll find in you,
she muttered to herself. She went to the cabinet and opened the top drawer. Inside were several labeled manila folders. Lorna chose one belonging to a patient named Huey Van Hoy and peeked through its contents. Inside was a dry, crumbling medical chart with names, numbers, and a list of chemicals. Included with it were 3 8x10 black and white photographs of a young man no older than 20 strapped to the very gurney that was at Lorna's back. Affixed to his head was the metal ring lying on the filthy floor beside the curious machine. The patient looked haggard and frail, his only clothing a hospital gown. A group of men in white lab coats, presumably doctors, and a couple of female nurses surrounded him. A cold discomfort flowed through Lorna, as if she were looking at something she wasn't allowed to see, supposed to see. Her hand shaking, she looked at another of the photographs. Lorna grimaced at the image of the boy's twisted body. She could make out the tightness of his contracted jaw muscles and the whiteness of his rolled-back eyes.
Did they use shock treatment on that kid? Is that what that machine does? Provide electricity?
She wondered. Lorna breathed shakily, deciding whether she should see the ending to this horrific incident.
I gotta know. The story of Huey might be the story of this whole place,
she told herself. Lorna slowly slid the third photo from behind the others and prepared herself for whatever horror it might hold.
Oh my God! My sweet God!
She gasped. The photo showed a close-up of the corpse of Huey Van Hoy. His skin looked charred. His lower jaw was hanging on loosely, as if he had gritted his teeth so hard that his jaw had dislocated. His eyes protruded from their sockets far enough to see the full size of them. Lorna dropped the file and its gruesome contents, allowing them to float to the floor like dead autumn leaves. She covered her mouth with her hand to restrain screams, vomit, sobs. She wasn't sure which. She only knew that the amount of sadness and revulsion that filled her mind and soul was more than she could contain. Lorna froze at the sound of the wheels of the gurney as it inched towards her. Did she dare turn around? She stood petrified.
I feel like a nervous dog in a thunderstorm on the 4th of July,
she thought. She jumped and yelped when she felt the iciness of the metal gurney come to a stop against her back. Terror heightened her senses. She smelled something like burned meat, saw the mist of her frozen breath, and heard something scooting around on the gurney behind her.
Oh, Lordy,
she whimpered. She turned her head slowly, as if it were rusted to her neck. A chalk-white thing, perhaps a human cadaver, was sitting up glaring at her with cold black eyes as dead as a doll's. Its bottom jaw twisted at a grotesque angle. All at once, the jaw dropped, making a sharp, wet crack. Die! The wraith wailed. She shoved the gurney away and bolted to the door, screaming at the top of her lungs. Meanwhile, Craig was wandering down the adjacent hall, oblivious to Lorna's plight.
What the heck was that?
He asked himself.
Sounded kind of like a scream. Oh, well, when you got a job to do, best get to it.
He pressed the record button on the EVP recorder. Speaking into it, he said,
Are there any ghosts in here?
When he didn't get a response, he asked,
Do y'all mean us harm?
Then, thinking of Lorna, asked,
If a man speaks in a forest and his wife ain't around, is he still wrong?
Again, silence. Then Craig heard what sounded to him like a locomotive barreling down the hall that Lorna had taken, its steam whistle heralding its hasty arrival. When he peeked down the hall, he saw Lorna at the foot of the stairs, jumping up and down and screaming like a banshee on fire.
Craig! Craig! Craig!
Lorna shrieked.
Something bothering you, sugar butt?
Lorna resembled a frog on a hot plate as she continued jumping up and down.
Get down here! Get down here!
All right, cool your jets,
Craig said in annoyance.
I'm a-coming.
When he reached Lorna, he said,
Will you stop jumping around? You look like a bleach blonde bowling ball somebody chucked on a trampoline.
Lorna calmed down only slightly.
Let me catch my breath.
After a moment, she was ready to talk.
We need to get our sorry tails out of here now. There's some really bad juju going on in this place. I just seen the tore up ghost of one of them mental patients.
Craig was skeptical.
You sure what you seen was a ghost? This joint could put a scare into Hulk Hogan.
Lorna was exasperated.
Listen, you little sawed-off son of a gun. I know a dadgum ghost when I see one. What about you? Did you see or hear anything?
No, but I did use this here whatchamacallit. Let me check it and see if I picked up anything.
Craig rewound the recording and pressed play. His teeny voice came forth.
Are there any ghosts in here?
Yes, we are many,
hissed the phantom. Craig gulped in air when he heard the ghostly voice. He quickly pressed the stop button. Lorna tensed.
Craig, we need to leave right now.
Lorna, don't get all freaked out. We knowed coming into this that there might be ghosts here. Let's hear what it says next.
Craig hit play.
Do y'all mean us harm?
we mean you death.
Lorna stepped back, as if to protect herself from the evil whispers emanating from the device. Craig, however, remained calm and stoic.
Lorna, will you settle down? It's just a voice on a machine. There ain't nothing here to be scared of. Just be brave like me. Now, let's listen to the last one. And remember, it's only a voice. It can't hurt us.
Craig pressed play and sneered at Lorna's foreboding.
If a man speaks in a forest and his wife ain't around, is he still wrong?
There was silence at first. Then the same disembodied voice whispered nervously.
Look, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I was married to. The answer is...
Suddenly, the ethereal voice of an angry woman came through on the recording.
Henry, is that you? Are you talking with those drunkard buddies of yours? What did I tell you about that? And by the way, that trash isn't going to take itself out. Henry, are you listening?
The man's voice returned, full of fear and anguish.
My advice to you is... run.
Craig's eyes grew wide.
You heard the man. Run!
Craig shot up the stairs like a ballistic missile that reeked of tobacco juice and bad choices.
Don't you leave me here, Craig Wankamoff!
Lorna hollered as she propelled herself past Craig, up the stairs, and into the main entrance of the asylum. Smellum and Pepe moved quietly through the upper level of Brickford Asylum, resembling two burglars tiptoeing around the house of a sleeping victim. Unlike in other parts of the hospital, the ceilings were high, at least 12 feet, and adorned with simple yet tasteful light fixtures. Rose-colored wallpaper fringed with swirls of gold covered walls decorated with 17th century Jan van Goyen oil paintings of European landscapes. Stone cherubs were perched atop sculpted marble bases like holy sentinels. Soon the two found themselves before two exquisitely hand-carved mahogany doors that separated them from the ward that housed the facility's patients.
You ready?
Smellum asked gravely. Pepe made an air cross in front of his chest.
Si, Reverend. I am ready.
Smellum turned the curved brass handles and pushed open the doors, eliciting groans from their long dormant hinges. It was as if they had stepped from one world into another, one of regal beauty, the other a depressing realm of filth and despair. The grimy yellow tiled floor reminded Smellum of the bathroom of his parsonage, where, in his oft-drunken state, he missed a toilet and peed on the cheap linoleum.
Why don't you turn on the camera now?
Smellum whispered to Pepe.
See, Reverend.
The light from the camera cast a wide white beam about 12 feet long. Smellum and Pepe followed it, pressing their shoulders together and stepping in perfect unison. They looked at the metal doors on either side. Each had a small window near the top and a slit at the bottom for passing food trays. Thick deadbolt locks protruded above their rusty doorknobs. Smellum braked a few doors down, as did his new Siamese twin, Pepe.
Let's check this one out,
he said, nodding toward a room on the right. He twisted the knob and was only marginally relieved to find it unlocked.
Let's do this.
Smellum opened the door, then he and Pepe entered. The room was 6 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 8 feet tall. A thin, stained mattress rested upon a metal cot that was bolted down. Thick, dry, rotted cloth panels comprised the floor and all 4 walls. A large plastic bucket served as a toilet. There was no sink or mirror. There was also no window, just a bare incandescent light bulb suspended from the high ceiling. Even in this later time, the space reeked of bodily waste. Madness and hopelessness hung in the air like a pungent mist that would never dissipate.
You getting all this?
Pepe was silent.
I asked you if... I'm sorry, Reverend, but I must.
Pepe turned and left the depressing room. He stood in the hallway, retching and crying. Smellum joined him. Pepe tried to contain his sorrow.
I must apologize, Reverend,
he sobbed.
It's just that there is so much. I know, little brother, I know,
Smellum said gently as he patted Pepe's shoulder.
But now listen, we gotta tell these people stories. That there's the only thing we can do for them now. You gonna be okay? See, Reverend,
Pepe sniffed.
You hear that? See, where do you think it is coming from?
Smellum raised his arm and pointed down the shadowy corridor.
That way.
Together, the frightened men plodded down the hall, following the chilling growl, until silence paused them.
It has stopped, Reverend. Don't you think it is gone?
The door of a room halfway down the hall slowly creaked open.
I reckon that's the spot right there,
Smellum whispered. He and Pepe inched toward the room that had beckoned them, stopping when they reached it. The ray from the camera shook violently.
Steady now, son,
Smellum muttered. The duo leaned their head past the doorway and froze at the sight of an emaciated woman in a filthy straitjacket standing in the shadowy corner. She was panting at an inhumanly fast pace. Her opaque eyes peered into their ice-filled souls. Purple veins through which blood no longer flowed crisscrossed her arms, legs, and neck.
Keep that camera on her no matter what,
Smellum told Pepe. He screwed up his courage and spoke to the creature.
Ma'am, I'm Reverend Ronnie Don Smellum. This shaky little fella is P.P. It's... never mind.
Smellum resumed the conversation.
We're here to establish contact with you and the other unfortunate residents who linger here. Is there anything you'd like to communicate?
The leering specter rose from the floor and slowly floated toward the frightened men, stopping at the center of the padded cell. Her mouth opened, expelling a foul odor that permeated the cramped space. Then the full-body apparition spoke in a language as ancient as time, and as horrid as hell.
Studio, easy lover.
Watch out, PP. I think she's channeling Phil Collins,
Smellum warned. The wraith continued.
Malakunia Bob.
The ghastly ghost's indiscernible language perplexed Smellum.
Say what? I'm sorry there, little missy, but I don't speak French. I know a little Italian, at least enough to get around. Hey, you know the important stuff like, take me to this hotel. What's a good restaurant? How much for you and your friend? You know the essentials.
The unearthly being ascended further from the ground. Its eyes became the color of molten iron. A hateful glare conveyed the anger and wrath of the foulest demon in hell.
I shall rip your insides from you and toss them into the fieriest pit in hell.
Now see there, I can understand that,
Smellum said.
It was plain and simple. You should have started out of the gate with that. Ain't you embarrassed you wasted so much time on that first gobbledygook? When's a woman gonna learn that a man don't respond to all that passive-aggressive crap? You gotta say what you mean. I remember my daddy used to tell my mama that
I will devour your broken, tortured souls like wet red meat.
The creature roared.
No, that's what my mama would say back to him. Wait a sec. Do you mean you gonna devour my soul?
Yes.
Well, what about the little Mexican fella here? He might be a tad spicier.
Easy, Reverend, Pepe warned. Remember, chilling tales for Dark Nights only allows a few racial stereotypes per episode, and we've already rode through 2.
Oh, right,
Smellum said, nodding his head.
Well, in that case, let's get the heck out of here.
Smellum and Pepe raced down the hall, through the decorative wooden doors, and down the mighty staircase in a flash of movement. When they reached the bottom, they narrowly missed slamming into a much frightened Craig and Lorna.
Y'all ain't gonna believe what me and Craig seen downstairs,
Lorna screeched. Smellum returned fire.
Yeah, well, we got a story of our own to tell. Everyone, please,
Pepe shouted.
Shouldn't we do something to release these tortured souls from this earthly prison?
Like what?
Craig asked.
I do not know,
Pepe replied. He turned to Smellum.
Reverend, is there nothing you can do?
Ignoring Pepe's plea for the moment, Smellum calmed down long enough to ask Craig and Lorna what he felt was the most important question.
We got some great footage upstairs. Did y'all get any scarier voices worth using?
We sure as heck did,
Craig triumphantly shouted.
Then let's finish this.
Smellum strode to the center of the impressive entrance and spread his arms like a magnificent bird. In a mighty voice filled with passion and conviction, he bellowed,
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, good luck. Now come on, let's get out of here.
Pepe frowned.
Somehow I am not inspired.
Then he followed the other members of the group of ghost hunters who had already fled the building. The crowd at Asava Burrow Cantina was drunk and convivial. During the 2 weeks since the members of Ghost Sniffers had run screaming to their parked vehicles outside of Brickford Asylum, Smellum and Pepe had pieced together a somewhat coherent first episode. Everyone was gathering to celebrate its inaugural launch on YouTube. Smellum was hungry and impatient. It had been at least 15 minutes since their server had seated them and provided a large bowl of salsa and a basket of hot tortilla chips.
Dang, if I'd known that was going to be the last time I'd ever see our waiter, I'd have hugged him and told him I loved him. You never know when it's the last time you're going to see somebody. Ain't that right, Pepe?
Pepe snarled.
It's pee-pee. Ha-ha!
Smellum exclaimed.
You tricked me,
Pepe said.
That weren't no trick. I tricked you when I said I was gonna pay you. Hey.
But Reverend, you said I would be, how you say, compensated.
Oh, I am compensating you.
Smellum reached into the pocket of his silver velour jacket, removed some strips of paper, then handed them to Pepe.
Here you go. These here are some coupons from the Jiffy Lube for half off on some oil changes. No need to thank me.
Pepe sulked.
Don't worry, I won't.
Guilt washed over Smellum.
Oh, come on now, don't be that way. It's like old Shakespeare said. I cried because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet and thought, ew, that's gross. All I gotta say is I'm happy to be back safe and sound,
Craig shared.
I don't even want to think about what might have happened if I'd lost my Lorna girl. I remember when we first met. For me, it was love at first sight. How about you, honeypot?
Lorna thought for a short bit.
No, it weren't love at first sight for me. It was more like love at foresight. But after that, I couldn't take my eyes off you.
Craig's eyes grew moist, and he smiled.
That's the Lorna I never knew.
Oh, shut up, you dookie-breath dumbass.
Now that's the Lorna I know.
Finally, the lost waiter returned from the further to take the group's order.
May I start you all out with some drinks from the bar? You betcha, mi amigo,
Smellum said.
I'll have 2 pitchers of Dingle Daddies and a funnel.
Si, senor. And you, my friend? He asked Pepe.
Do you take coupons for oil changes?
No, senor, we do not.
A glass of water, then? Don't worry there, little feller. Your drinks are on me. In fact, your meal is too. But word to the wise, neither of us needs to be eating any red meat. Yep, too much red meat in your system can lead to a premature death. Just ask a cow.
And for you and your lovely lady? The waiter asked Craig.
We'll have a whiskey drink. We'll have a vodka drink. We'll have a lager drink. We'll have a cider drink. We'll have a song to remind us of the good times. We'll have a song to remind us of the better times. You get all that, Danny boy?
Si, senor, the waiter said. As the night wore on, the happy group drank, laughed, and celebrated. Craig lied to the waiter, telling him it was Lorna's birthday so they could finagle a song and a free dessert. The waiter returned with a small chocolate cake and 3 other employees, one of whom was armed with an out-of-tune acoustic guitar. The waiter placed an oversized sombrero on Lorna's head, and the group began warbling an unfortunate rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. At the end of the evening, the foursome staggered to the parking lot, still guffawing and singing.
I'll keep y'all praised of how Ghost Sniffers is doing,
Smellum said to the others.
I really think that bird'll fly.
We'll see, I guess,
Craig said.
So, what are y'all gonna do next?
Well,
Lorna answered.
We've been talking about taking us a trip to some place we've never been.
Like where, senora?
Pepe asked.
Well, we never been no place cold. We're thinking of maybe visiting Alaska or some other such place.
Brrr, a little too cold for me. My coconuts and banana grow better in warm climates. Besides, it ain't always a good idea for a volatile couple like y'all be spending too much time together. I believe it was Aristotle who said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, while a divorce begins with, wow, hun, have you been putting on weight?
Lorna looked at Smellum as though he were dressed like a dancing avocado.
You got a cockeyed quote for everything, don't you? I reckon some drink from the fountain of knowledge while others tend to gargle.
Laughed Pepe.
Senora Lorna got you good, Reverend Smellum.
Smellum shrugged.
It's all good. Her disdain for my sense of humor don't bother me none. According to the CIA, the 3 biggest bomb makers out there are North Korea, Iran, and the joke writers for these stories.
Everybody be nice, Craig said. These kinds of issues are like peanuts. They always work their way out in the end. Now then, let's just kiss and say goodbye.
Hugs were exchanged, hands were shaken, and sexual advances from Smellum were spurned, especially by Lorna. The 4 adventurers went their separate ways, unsure of what the future held for them and their TV enterprise. Smellum and Pepe looked forward to a prosperous future together. As for Craig and Lorna, they didn't know it yet, but their future wasn't going to be as warm and bright as they had hoped. Fact was, it was going to be very cold and very, very horrifying. She tossed it from hand to hand like a hot potato. When she couldn't hold on to it any longer, she flipped it onto Lynette's upturned. She tossed it from hand to hand like a hot potato. When she couldn't hold on to it any longer, she flipped it onto Lynette's upturned face. Lorna used tongs to remove the scalding hot cloth. Lorna used tongs to remove the scalding hot cloth and tossed it into...
Damn it,
Lorna crooned. She shook the gray charcoal briquettes from the ash can onto... Lynette screamed, catapulting herself off the table.
Those of us who hung around quickly formed a prayer circle to lift up an injured officer who had, as Edna put it, got bit on his ding-a-ling. A rolling stone gathers no moss, but it'll sure crush the hell out of an elderly midget.
And that was Craig's Ghosts by P.D. Williams. A good reminder that chasing ghosts is a lot like chasing YouTube revenue. Pretty scary, and you'll probably have your soul devoured. Also, if Chillin' Tales actually caps stereotypes at 3 per episode, let me do the honors. Geoff, you're fired. A little about the author. P.D. Williams is a writer of music, short horror fiction, and comedy. Several podcasts, e-zines, and anthologies have featured his work. His first collection of short horror fiction, Dark House, Many Rooms, and the popular comedy series Straight Outta Claxton, the Craig and Lorna series, books 1 through 3, are available everywhere books are sold, including Audible. For discount codes, contact the author at pdwilliamsauthor.com or through his Facebook page, P.D. Williams Horror Writer. Keep an eye out for his brand new collection called There Are Creatures Here, featuring 20 stories, and set to release in early October. There's also an audiobook on the way. We'll make sure to keep you all posted on that. Thanks, PD, and sorry for the mauling.
And do old Drew Blood a favor, would you? Subscribe to his podcast wherever you do your listening and leave him a 5-star review and a kind word, even if you're listening on YouTube. He needs soldiers on all fronts to win this battle, and he appreciates it. To hear a premium ad-free edition of tonight's and all the other episodes, visit simplyscarypodcast.com today and click Patrons in the upper menu. You'll find yourself at chillintalesfordarknights.com, where you can become a patron for as little as $5 per month and get access to their entire audio archive, all ad-free and available to download or stream. Thank you for your time and for supporting our sponsors. When you support our sponsors, you support this show. If you happen to use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, you can follow and subscribe to Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights there, where you'll get all the latest updates and new releases and have the chance to interact with them each and every week. Oh, and you can find Drew Blood on Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. The Drew Blood's Dark Tales podcast is accepting submissions, friend. If you've got a story or two you'd like to be featured on the show, send it to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com. If selected, you'll get the full treatment, 10 bananas.
Well, I'm afraid this is where we part ways, at least till next week. So grab a drink for the road, friend. Do me a favor and make sure PD still has all his limbs out there, would you? In any case, hopefully he saved you a dingle daddies. May the wind be at your back, and may the road rise up to meet you. Remember, a good pair of trousers covers a multitude of sins. And of course, go fuck yourselves. Good night, my dear friends. Good night.
Chilling tales for dark nights.